For many players, Phantom Rage is all about the big archetypes and themes that are working together to achieve a common goal. But in today's Konami sponsored video, I want to talk to you about 3 cards that can be used in a variety of decks and aren't really part of any specific archetype. These cards pack some serious effects, and I truly do believe they are game-changing in many ways. The first card in today's video is Alpha, the Master of Beasts. This is a level 8 Earth Beast monster with 3000 attack and 2500 defense. This thing is huge. I mean, this is a really big monster, and it draws a lot of comparisons to Dino Wrestler Pankratops, which we'll talk about more in a minute here. So what does this thing do? Well, it says, cannot be normal summoned or set, must first be special summoned from your hand, while the total attack of all monsters your opponent controls is more than that of all monsters you control. So, for example, if you control no monsters and your opponent controls at least a monster with 100 attack points, you can special summon this card from your hand for free. You can target any number of beast, warrior, and or winged beast monsters you control, return them to the hand, then return face-up monsters your opponent controls to the hand equal to the number of cards you returned to the hand. And yes, of course, it can bounce itself, which is really valuable in many situations. Next, it says, also for the rest of this turn, Alpha, the Master of Beasts you control, cannot attack directly. You can only use this effect of Alpha, the Master of Beasts once per turn. It's hard not to love this card. It's big, it's easy to summon, and it can bounce opponents' monsters back to their hand without even targeting them, which is extremely powerful. Keep in mind here, you don't even have to be playing a beast warrior, or winged beast deck to take advantage of this card, because it can bounce itself, like I said. Obviously, this card gets better if you are playing beast warrior, or winged beast monsters. Maybe if you're playing Melfies or Fire Fist or even Harpies, all of those decks are really going to enjoy this card. But also you can just play it as a generically powerful going second card that can be played in pretty much any strategy. Compared to Dino Wrestler Pankratops, it does have a few key differences. First off, you don't have to control less monsters than your opponent. Maybe you have a bunch of smaller monsters and your opponent has one big monster. Well, as long as the total attack points of all monsters they control is larger than the total attack points of all of your monsters, you can special summon Alpha right from your hand. Also, in many cases, bouncing a card without targeting is better than destroying it. Sure, Pankratops can hit spells and traps, not just monsters, but in many cases, people are using the Pankratops on monsters, and in those situations, Alpha is almost always better. One of the situations where I really like this card is when your opponent has 2 big monsters and you have Alpha in your hand. You can special summon the Alpha because your opponent obviously has more attack points than you do if you control no monsters, and then you can bounce one of them back to the hand, also bouncing the Alpha, and then you can re-summon the Alpha to attack over the other big monster, because Alpha has 3000 attack, which is really big. Now, of course, with this card, there has to be drawbacks, there has to be trade-offs compared to Dino Wrestler Pankratops. So not only can this card not hit spells and traps, also it's not a quick effect unlike Pankratops, which can matter in some situations. Regardless, this card does have some serious benefits compared to Pankratops, and obviously Pankratops saw tons of competitive success, and I think in many ways Alpha, Master of the Beasts is a spiritual successor to Pankratops and will likely see tons of competitive success. Next up, and this is a big one, Divine Arsenal AA-ZEUS Sky Thunder. Oh my gosh, is that a long name, and oh my gosh, is this card incredibly powerful. It's not only scary how good this card's effect is, it's also scary how crazy easy it is to summon it on the field. If you are playing Xyz monsters, you really want to pick up this card. It's going to make a huge difference in pretty much every single duel that you play. So what is this thing? It is a huge rank 12 light machine monster with 3000 attack and 3000 defense. Now you might want to make this card with the regular materials, and that's fine. It takes 2 level 12 monsters, but I think more often than not you will use the special ability to summon it a lot easier. So once per turn, if an Xyz monster battled this turn, you can also Xyz summon Divine Arsenal AA-ZEUS Sky Thunder by using one Xyz monster you control as material, and of course transfer its materials to this card. That is extremely easy to do. All you have to do is battle with an Xyz monster, which is pretty much what every deck playing Xyz monsters wants to do anyway. Quick effect, you can detach 2 materials from this card, send all other cards from the field to the graveyard. So extremely good. Once per turn, if another card or cards you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can attach 1 card from your hand, deck, or extra deck to this card as material. In other words, this is a 3000 attack, rank 12, evenly matched that pretty much every deck playing Xyz monsters can summon with ease. This is a very scary card to play against, and if you are playing a deck with Xyz monsters, you have to play around it, because otherwise you're going to lose all of your cards. What makes this card so interesting is that while you can use it just like evenly matched would have been used, going second, you could summon an Xyz monster and then attack with it, and then in main phase 2, summon this thing and wipe the entire field. You also, if you're in a good position, you can just summon this card and end your turn and use it as a quick effect during your opponent's next turn. What's really cool here though is that you can use this card multiple times. It might get more material if your opponent destroys your monsters by battle or card effect, or you can just summon this thing on top of an Xyz monster with lots of materials and then transfer all of them to this card. It's not that unlikely to use this card on your turn to wipe the board, and then on your opponent's turn once again while they're trying to recover. While this card is very strong in any deck playing Xyz monsters, there are a couple standouts that I do want to mention in today's video. Whether or not you're playing Phantom Knights or Burning Abyss or both in the same deck, you're going to want to have at least a couple copies of this card because it is simply that powerful in those 2 archetypes. These decks are so good at summoning rank 3 monsters every single turn that Sky Thunder is an obvious inclusion. Sky Thunder is also right at home in a Zodiac deck, not only because of how easy they can summon rank 4 monsters, but also because they can summon Xyz monsters with lots of Xyz material. I also want to mention Frog Paleozoics, not only because they can summon rank 2 monsters quite easily, but also because historically speaking, this deck has really struggled with going second against bigger boards, but now you can summon Sky Thunder pretty much at any time and send all the cards to the graveyard. Next up, we have Warning Point, a new generic trap card that can shut your opponent down before they get a chance to do their big combos. If you're someone who likes controlling the game with a lot of trap cards, then Warning Point is going to be great for your deck. Whether or not you're playing Eldritch or Dogmatica or Altergeist or Guru Control or Frog Paleozoics, Warning Point is going to be really impactful in a lot of matchups. When a monster or monsters is summoned, this turn that face-up monster cannot attack, its effects are negated, also it cannot be used as material for a fusion, synchro, Xyz, or link summon. This card combines the best parts of no materials restriction effect and Fiendish Chain. Not only does it stop the effect that your opponent might be trying to activate, also they can't attack with that monster or use it for pretty much any material. They can, if they want to, still tribute the monster, so if your opponent's playing rituals, maybe watch out for that. But in most cases, you're pretty much locking down that monster for the entire turn, which in some matchups can be the difference between winning and losing. This card is also especially good against Christian Helke Firebacks. Not only will it negate the effect to special summon a powerful tuner from the deck, but also prevents your opponent from using it for a link cross to further their combos. If your opponent has 2 monsters on the field and you're trying to lock them down from summoning Predaplant Anaconda, you could use Warning Point to do that, or you could also use this card against Alistair the Invoker. It would not only stop the searching effect, of course, but also your opponent could then not use it for a link summon or a fusion summon later on in the turn. Warning Point, like the other 2 cards in today's video, is generically powerful in pretty much any deck that you want to play it in. It's so good against pretty much any matchup that is trying to summon from the extra deck, but even if they're not trying to do that, you can just use it as a Fiendish Chain to stop an effect. This card is extremely flexible. You can pretty much use it in or against whatever deck you want, and it's one of my favorite trap cards released in recent memory. Phantom Rage releases on November 5th for OTS stores and 1 day later for everyone else, so make sure to look for these 3 very powerful game-changing cards, as well as all the other cool new stuff in the set. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say for today's video. Thank you to Konami for sponsoring today's discussion. I really do love talking about powerful generic cards that pretty much any deck can use, and all 3 of these are going to be extremely good for a lot of players. I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.